Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 1,000 subscribers and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy this content, please hit that subscribe button right now.
Here's the thing about timing in baseball. It doesn't care about fairness. Joey Loperfido shows up, immediately produces an 893 OPS over 12 games, and now he might be gone from Toronto before he ever really arrived. That's not a failure on his part. That's just the reality of a roster crunch meeting, trade deadline economics. And right now, Loperfido is caught directly in the middle of it. The Blue Jays have the best record in the American League, which sounds like the kind of problem every team wants. But success creates its own complications, especially when you've got 9 outfielders on your 40-man roster and Dalton Varsho is about to return from injury. Suddenly, talent becomes a surplus rather than an asset. And when you're competing for a championship, you don't let surplus talent sit idle. You convert it into something that addresses your actual needs. Loperfido isn't just some organizational depth piece either. This is a 23-year-old who came over from Houston in the Yusei Kikuchi trade last year and immediately validated that acquisition. The Astros don't give up prospects lightly, and Toronto knew exactly what they were getting. What they probably didn't anticipate was how quickly the outfield situation would become unsustainable. You can carry depth, but you can't carry 9 major league caliber outfielders without wasting someone's development time. The brutal calculus here is that Loperfido's recent success actually makes him more tradable, not less. If he was struggling, Toronto would have a harder time finding a quality return. But when a young player is posting an OPS near 900, suddenly every contending team with outfield needs starts making calls. His value has never been higher, and front offices know that value is a temporary condition. You maximize it when you can. What makes this situation particularly interesting is how it reflects Toronto's complete transformation over the past year. They went from sellers to buyers, from rebuilding to competing, and that shift changes how you evaluate your roster. When you're rebuilding, you protect young talent and give them development time, regardless of short-term performance. When you're competing for a championship, you make hard decisions about who fits your current window and who becomes trade capital for immediate upgrades. The scouts who've watched Loperfido closely keep mentioning something beyond his statistics, his composure. Being traded twice in 2 years would rattle most young players, create doubt, make them press. Loperfido has shown unusual mental maturity for someone dealing with that kind of instability. That's the type of intangible that separates prospects who maximize their talent from those who get lost in the shuffle. Teams notice that. It makes him more valuable, not just as a player, but as someone who can handle whatever situation he lands in next. For Toronto, keeping him means limiting opportunities for other young outfielders like Alan Roden and Jonathan Clays. It means having a productive player sitting on the bench or getting inconsistent playing time, which helps nobody. Trading him means risking that he becomes a star elsewhere, that you gave up on him too early, that the return doesn't match his eventual production. These are the decisions that define front offices, not whether to keep good players, but which good players to keep and which to convert into different value. The destination matters enormously here. Loperfido going to a team with a clear outfield opening where he can play every day and establish himself changes the entire narrative. He could become the kind of player who makes Houston regret trading him and makes Toronto regret not finding room. But if he lands on another crowded roster where he's fighting for playing time, then the cycle just continues and his development stalls out. Think about the prospects who've faced similar crossroads. Mike Trout could have gotten buried in a crowded Angels system if circumstances were different. Juan Soto needed the Nationals to give him consistent opportunities as a teenager. The talent matters, but so does the situation. Loperfido is talented enough that the right opportunity could unlock something special. The wrong situation could turn him into another what-if story that fans debate years later. The fan reaction tells you everything about how quickly Loperfido connected in Toronto. The hashtag, the debates on social media, the emotional investment in a player who's been there less than 2 weeks. That's rare. Usually it takes a season or more for fans to really embrace a player. Loperfido did it in 12 games by simply producing and showing the kind of energy that contending teams feed off. Losing that creates genuine disappointment, even when fans understand the roster logic behind the move. Here's what actually happens if Toronto trades him before Thursday. They gain roster flexibility immediately. Varsho comes back without forcing anyone else off the roster. They likely get back either pitching help or infield depth, addressing actual needs rather than carrying outfield surplus. They demonstrate to other teams that they're willing to make tough decisions to optimize their championship window. That's not nothing when you're trying to establish yourself as a serious contender. For Loperfido, the upside is immediate and obvious. Consistent playing time, the chance to prove he belongs as an everyday player, the opportunity to build on his hot start rather than watching it cool off on the bench. The downside is leaving a first-place team for an unknown situation, potentially with more pressure to produce immediately without the cushion of being on a deep roster. It's a trade-off that could define the trajectory of his career. The teams circling right now are the ones who need outfield help and believe they're one or two pieces away from competing. They're looking at Loperfido's production, his age, his team control, and seeing exactly the kind of low-risk, high-reward addition that changes depth charts without requiring massive financial commitments. For a team that's hesitant to trade top prospects or take on big contracts, Loperfido represents the perfect middle ground. What Toronto cannot do is wait too long. If they're going to trade him, the deadline is the moment. His value is peaking, teams are desperate for upgrades, and the return will never be better. If they wait until the offseason, other options emerge. Urgency decreases and leverage shifts. The trade deadline creates artificial scarcity that smart front offices exploit. The irony is that Loperfido's situation would be completely different if he'd struggled in his first 12 games. A slow start and he's just organizational depth. Someone you keep around without much thought. But he produced, he showed he belongs, and now that success has made him expendable. That's baseball economics in the cruelest form, doing everything right and still getting moved because the circumstances demand it. So what happens next probably comes down to which team makes the best offer before Thursday. Toronto's front office knows they can't keep everyone, knows they need to address other areas, knows that Loperfido's value gives them leverage. The question is whether they find a trade that makes letting him go worth it, or whether they decide the depth is more valuable than whatever return they're offered. Either way, Loperfido's career is about to take another turn, and whether that turn leads to stardom or struggle depends entirely on where he lands and what opportunities await. Drop your prediction below about whether Toronto moves him or keeps him through the deadline.